Hey guys, welcome to the Babbling Pastor Podcast, part of the Honest Youth Pastor YouTube channel, with Michael and Rob.
Oh, and Rob, yep, I'm here.
So this month for this set of podcasts, in case you did not, and you really should, if you did not hear the last episode, you need to go back and listen to the last episode. But this this set of podcasts, I'm torturing Rob essentially, in the most kind and friendly friendship way possible, in which I am putting tweets in front of him that I know that he is going to I don't know, cringe at, disagree with. I'm not sure how to state it.
You're attempting to trigger me.
Yes,
This
I
is
am.
this is common language today.
Yeah.
That would fit. You're attempting to trigger me.
I am attempting to trigger
Yeah.
Rob. Which, and to fit his position of elder, he has shown self-control and temperance so far. But my attempt here is not to disqualify Rob, but it is to kind of show him what's on Twitter. Not that he didn't know the depths of terribleness over there, but anyway, that being said, last week was interesting. You can go back and watch or listen to that one if you'd like. And today, Rob, here is today's tweet.
All right.
This is from this is another pastor. His name is Zach, and Zach says this. Churches who say, quote, everyone is welcome, unquote, but have invisible restrictions on women and LGBTQ plus folks, such as baptism, membership, marriage, and leadership, are actually more damaging than churches that are upfront about their exclusion. So there's a lot here. Like there's a bunch here. Different layers. It's like an onion, if you wanted to peel back.
This is so much bigger than 15 minutes.
Yeah, it is. You're right.
Okay. All right.
I say, here, I'm going to trigger you. Also, 15 minutes. Go.
Okay, so here just a quick assessment of this show and the next one and the next one, right? I actually don't think that I'm going to be triggered because at least the last one and this one, it's like people say these things and I automatically go, yeah, I'm not taking you seriously.
Yeah, I think that is appropriate reaction to instead of be like, no, I'm gonna tell you how you're wrong. Just be like, oh, you're that person.
How dare you?
Yeah, you're just.
Yeah.
I feel like you need to talk with that accent the rest of the time.
Churches who say everyone is welcome, but have invisible restrictions on women and LGBTQ plus folks. So this is two completely different. So here's what we need to say first of all, right? So LGBTQ folks and women, two completely different categories, right?
Yeah, 100%.
No church restricts women from baptism, membership, or marriage. Okay, what he's alluding to there is certain roles within leadership, specifically.
Good call. Good call out.
And the LGBTQ thing, frankly, depending on the situation, that would also not necessarily exclude someone from baptism, membership, marriage, or
That's
even leadership.
Point. So unpack that just a little bit.
Yeah. So I think what he's probably talking about is active LGBTQ lifestyle living out loud. Yeah. I'm Rob and I have a boyfriend, Tim. Here he is, kind of, like living it, right? And in that case, yes, I couldn't in good conscience baptize you if you're in the middle of that kind of relationship, or you certainly couldn't be a member with voting rights and things like that in the church if you are actively living in known sin. So I think one of the struggles, so there, everyone is welcome, right? Everyone is welcome regardless.
Yeah.
in the church. It is simply true that everyone isn't welcome to do whatever they want in the church, right? And so there's a real struggle, I think, today. This might not be where in fact, this isn't necessarily where we want to go with the whole thing, but I just feel like I need to say that there's a real struggle in the world of the church today, um, and as the world um, thinks about the church as well, that if this comes from the world's culture, not the church, really, but worldliness within the church happens, and that is that if I am not free to be whatever I want to be, then you hate me, you don't welcome me, you don't love me, you don't support me, all these things, right? We make lots of assumptions simply because I'm not allowed to fill in the blank,
Yeah.
right?
Eat chocolate for
So
breakfast.
yeah, right. It seems to me that um, that this idea is maybe is part of what's behind tweets like this and thinking like this. So women in leadership roles, we've actually just been having this kind of conversation even in our own church and Bible study settings and things like that. And the you know what we did when questions came up, what does this mean, or what about this, or why do we do this here or that here, when those kind of questions come up, you know what we do?
You go to the Bible, maybe?
We open this, right, and we see what it says. I mean, and
Hmm.
at the end of the day, I'll tell you what, man, if a person could exegetically rip the Bible apart and tell me why it is good and right and sound biblically to baptize someone who's actively living out a homosexual lifestyle. And to be fair, I wouldn't do this for someone who's actively living out a heterosexual, sexually immoral
See, yeah,
lifestyle
I think that's a
or
really
anything
important call
else.
out too. Yeah, like if you're in adultery and you're like, "Hey, I want to be baptized," like, well, I'm sorry, that's not gonna happen
Right.
right now. Yeah,
Yep. Yeah, and so you couldn't. So being a woman is obviously not a sin, right? But LGBTQ living an active living out of that lifestyle, no matter which letter you are, is sin. It is counter Bible. It is it is um, telling a lie about who God is and what He has created, and so it is sinful. And so replace LGBTQ plus with any other sin, one that's not popular and preached as wonderful today, any other sin, and then say the same tweet.
yeah.
Um,
Churches who
and you're
say,
not like,
yeah, we'll go
and
with
hear me,
greed.
I'm not going to, man, I am not going to, this is okay. This is going to trigger some people. All right, Michael, you ready?
Okay, hey, let's go for it.
So I am not in any way, shape, or form putting these two things on the same level. Okay. I don't intend to do that here, but I'm just making a point that if you throw another sin that is not acceptable in our society or culture yet, in the mix here, this tweet becomes null and void, right? So if someone were to say, churches who say everyone is welcome but have invisible restrictions on pedophiles, uh, like baptism, membership, marriage, and leadership, are actually much more damaging than churches who are upfront about their exclusion. This tweet now becomes like one that no one's going to retweet because it's retweet because it's stupid at that
Mm.
point, right? It's incoherent. It doesn't even make any sense. It's simply because LGBTQ has become a sin that our world loves. It's preached by the world. It's taught as good by the world. It's the very definition of the end of that little difficult part of Romans chapter 1, right? Like they not only do these things, but they heartily approve of others doing them and tell others to do them. And like, this is the world in which we live. And so we've picked a category of sinfulness and raised it up to the level of good and right and true, right? And now, because that's prevailing in the culture, and some churches don't open up the Bible and do this. They see the culture, they feel the pressure, and they say, okay, well, there's got to be a way around that. And then they go in the scriptures and mutilate them in an attempt to say, well, okay, this isn't sinful. And so in a culture like that, this statement seems accurate. It seems good. But you have to assume that LGBTQ plus, I think it's AI now or whatever, like all these things, right?
Yeah, AI2S, yeah,
right. So we'll just say sexual immorality of any kind, because that's what a lot of this boils down to. This tweet only works if I've accepted that those things are good and okay. Because no church in all of human history, if they have an idea that this thing is a sin, and this person is actively living, if I have a guy walk into my church whose wife is walking into our church with him, and her face is all bruised up because he beats her regularly, like, we're not going to have a baptism conversation. Right, I'm calling the police, right? Like, so this is a ludicrous statement. I'm just gonna say that.
And I think the reason, like you were talking about, I think it is important to pull out the women and LGBTQ as one category. I think the reason he includes the women part is, like you said earlier, because of the leadership thing. There is like this real groundswell at the moment in regards to like down with the patriarchy, even putting complementarianism basically as a soft patriarchy. So this is the idea. And I don't want to, again, assume too much of Zach, but from what I've seen of the rest of his tweets, that sort of is the stream that he's in, that any limitation on women at all, even within the marriage, as far as how the marriage works out, like it's like that's all bad. So I think the woman thing here is a little bit more than just the leadership thing. I think it's very much like any sort of hierarchy at all is bad. Any restriction on women at all is bad. In fact, some of the stuff in scripture might be considered that way as well. And again, that is me assuming, but I think I have enough evidence based on reading some of his other stuff that's also there.
So he could be referring to the women thing in a marriage context as well.
Well, also, yeah, I think just with a lot of like, what wave are we on? Fourth or fifth wave feminism in regards to sort of playing into that as well. I honestly don't know if we're on fourth or fifth. Yeah. I'm very confused about it. But
they're all one. Unbiblical.
The newest one. So we have, I think that's where that combination comes to, though, even if you don't include that, at the very least, he is talking about the leadership part. That if any church were to restrict a woman from leadership, it would be an issue. But that was my reaction essentially as well to this when I first saw it. I thought, automatically first of all, these aren't invisible restrictions ever. These are just blatant restrictions. Now I think what he is talking about, and maybe sort of and wind down the conversation a bit, but as we sort of close it out, his premise seems to be churches that say everyone is welcome are more problematic than those churches that say, no, these are just our upfront stated beliefs. So there are a lot of mega churches, for example. I know Hillsong got a lot of beef, well, there's a lot of reasons that Hillsong gets a lot of beef, but this one specifically was that they tell you that everyone was...
A lot of good reasons.
Yeah. They would tell you that everyone was welcome, but when you tried to join leadership or membership or something like that, then you'd say, oh yeah, but here are some restrictions. So I think that's he's sort of tapping into the kind of mega church culture of, hey, come in guys. And then when you try to get involved, they say you can't because of this, that, or the other thing. Versus churches that I would say like my denomination, for example, would just be like, no, like in the door, you already know this is sort of how this works.
Yeah.
So I think to that point, he may be a little, I don't want to give him too much credit, but I would say he's sort of right in the fact that it is probably better for churches to be upfront about what you stand for, as far as on your website, on your statements of faith,
Yeah.
so that people don't come in having an assumption about, oh, well, I can do this, that, or the other thing and still be a part of here, and then find out later they
Hmm.
can't. I think that, but again, that goes back to what you were saying before. I mean, just if you're talking about it, your example of the guy walking in with the wife with the bruised face, and automatically you're like, no, this isn't how we're rolling. I think
Right.
being upfront about that is actually better than soft pedaling to try to get people's butts in the pews or in the padded seats or whatever you have.
Yeah.
But the idea that this is some sort of invisible restriction is the more I read church history, the more hilarious this tweet is, because there are never invisible restrictions. I mean, baptism being the entry into the church in the early church. I mean, you are a member
Yeah.
after baptism. There are baptism restrictions. Like, you cannot be a part of the church if you don't believe this, that, or the other thing. So anyway, that's.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so from that standpoint, I would actually say he's right.
Mhm.
Kind of like you alluded to, when, so the only problem that I have with the tweet at the end of the day is, um, that I could have said the same thing, I think,
Mhm.
um, by saying, um, churches who, um, I mean, at the end of the day, what he's saying is churches should be upfront with, we're going to be biblical or unbiblical here. I
Yeah.
mean,
No, that's yeah.
and and rightfully so. Like, I owe for the day, right? That churches would be known, uh, about certain restrictions or, whatever, just because they're churches,
Yeah.
which
Well, and that
which
used
would
to
have been
be.
the case in the beginning.
Exactly.
And yeah,
I mean,
yes.
what, 50 years
And fit
ago, that was the assumption. Yeah.
Yeah, were it not for feminism and this sexual revolution thing that's been going on in our culture today, this wouldn't even be a tweet.
Mhm.
I think that, the we have taken this is okay. I'm just going to rant for 1 second. All right,
Go.
we have taken the beautiful, amazing, uh, uh, epically important role of women, and as a huge, as a culture at large, we've taken that amazing role and said that role sucks. That's not important. That's not good enough. And like, it's ironic that, to me, that, like, this is per the scriptures, how the scriptures. So it's ironic to me that we have gotten to a place in which, we spit on the role of women as if it's unimportant, and we hate men, and yet the whole point of feminism is that women can become men. It absolutely makes no sense whatsoever. God gave women a superpower that men never have, that men cannot have, despite what culture might tell you, that this developing a child inside of you is an absolute superpower that God has given women. And it is, one of the it's one of two most important roles, equally important roles, I'll add, um, in all of the human race, in human history. And, um, so let's say this: a woman is, married, gets pregnant, which should be the order, by the way, is married, gets pregnant, um, has baby, and spends time in the young years and on, pouring her life into this child. Not just so that they make it on the bus on time or like whatever, but pouring her life and heart and soul into nurturing and loving this child, and even teaching them, right? Teaching them with her own example, teaching them while dad is at work or doing whatever he's doing. That To say that that role is less than is a complete and utter joke. It's a joke. If that role didn't exist, humanity wouldn't exist. And it's absolutely important.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I guess that's my 2 cents. That's actually what the scripture is talking about when it says a woman will be saved through childbearing. It's it's so important. A woman's role in scripture is not secondary. It's not this ugly, stupid, restricting thing that we've made it out to be in our culture. It's epically important.
Yeah.
And if they don't do it, no one else can. That's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the same thing. Women actually are capable of doing a lot of the things that men can do, unless we talk about physical stuff, right? But men are not capable of doing the woman's role.
Yeah.
Like, so why isn't that raised up and honored the way that it should be
Mm-hmm.
in our culture? Yeah, I don't know. The whole thing just makes me want to cringe. There's my you triggered
There,
me. Good
I
job.
got it. I got him. Okay. So good deal. I think that one of the things, especially with that tweet, as we start to close this out, is just remembering like knowing church history, knowing the importance of baptism, about membership, about marriage, what that looks like, what leadership is supposed to be. I mean, if you have clear definitions, biblical definitions of all four of those things, that is going to give you a much better lens on how to interpret tweets such as that. Because now, when you're excluded from those things, or you at least understand that, oh, well, this is the biblical way this is supposed to work. So of course there are restrictions on some of these things. So
Mhm.
hopefully, guys, hopefully that was helpful. I got him at the end there. Got him at the end. So next week, come back and we will see the next tweet we have as far as looking at it. And really, the whole goal here, again, I joke about triggering Rob, but the goal is to present these statements to you guys, and then as we work through them, hopefully show a way to do that well as you come across them. Because the reality is, whether you're on Twitter or not, these are ways of thinking that are floating around and are being embraced by people that you will probably interact with and have to, in some form or fashion, respond to in a Christian way. So the hope is that this is sort of helping you in doing that. So that being said, guys, we'll talk to you next week. Bye.
Bye.